here it goes. And so we're going to be talking tonight a lot about environment and how important the environment is to helping your young athlete not only work to achieve meaningful goals in tennis, but also far beyond tennis. So we're going to hop right in. Helping your athletes self-motivate. This is part of in the text. I gave kind of a 3-item agenda. If you have a pen and paper, I highly suggest you taking a few notes over this, because this will help you with the activity that's going to follow suit in a second that I'm going to encourage you guys to use with your athlete. So helping your athlete self-motivate. There's a really important reason we phrase it like this, because we want our athletes to be able to take what they're doing, whether, again, we're talking athletics tonight. It can also be educational. It could be, vocational down the road. But what we want them to do is we want them to understand the reasons why they do what they do. Oftentimes, young people will have these should or must demands on them. I should do this. I must do this. I ought to do this. I have to do this. This is expected of me. And that's all fine and dandy. But let's be real. If mom wants me to do the chores or dad wants me to do the chores, what kind of and what level of motivation really speaks to that individual to help them achieve or do the task? Listen, I'm not gonna lie, I am not a person who loves to clean, but I'll tell you what, if I talk to my wife, she loves to clean. I don't know why. I just don't understand her. All right. Yes, psychologist, yes, counseling background, yes, but no, I don't understand her. I don't understand that. But understanding why we do what we do gives us more power to do what it is that we need to do. So we're going to run through this. There are 2 of the largest, I guess, documented leading researchers in the topic of performance and motivational psychology is a guy named Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. Deci and Ryan, these 2 guys, they really boiled motivation down to 5 different pillars. Have a really cool graphic that explains this, and we'll go through this briefly. We understand the difference between extrinsic motivation versus intrinsic. Okay, but let me break it down, and this is a way that I could encourage you guys to pitch this back to your athletes and back to your son and daughter. We do things from different levels and different reasons. The first level is X equal Y. It's kind of an expectation, okay? I study hard for this exam, so that way I can get a good grade. I prepare on the tennis court, so that way I can hit the ball better. I do the chores, so that way mom or dad doesn't get upset with me. No matter how you cut it up, I do X, so that way I get Y. Kind of an expectation. Some of us, again, adults in the room, we say, okay, well, I'm going to, I go to my job, so I get a paycheck. Okay. The most simple, basic level of expectation. And if we think about it, also equally, vice versa, is if I don't go to my job, I don't get the paycheck. There's a direct correlation there. So the reason why we lead with this one and share with the athletes is like, okay, well, on the surface, it makes sense. And yeah, it's practical, but studies have shown long-term or long periods of time, over the course of a few weeks, months, years, this is not a very strong level of motivation. Don't believe me? Well, many of you may have had a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 18th, I don't know, different job in your lifetime. And if you're chasing just X equals Y relationships, it's pretty easy to distinguish and understand why. Several athletes we work with, fortunately, unfortunately, they are driven by a UTR. They're driven by status. They're driven by everything is just put into this week or this weekend. It's X equals kind of Y relationship. Dangerous to do if we make that the whole revolving door of our levels of motivation, why we play tennis. Number 2 is guilt. I play tennis because, well, mom, dad expect me to. I play tennis because, well, my friends will miss me. I play tennis because you can come up with a whole bunch of different reasons. I clean this. This is me, by the way, when I was in high school. I clean the house so that way I don't disappoint mom and dad. It was not driven by any of what Trev wanted. It was all driven just literally out of guilt. Again, very short term. All right. So If we're talking about fuel in a car or fuel in an engine, this is like rocket fuel. There's a difference between rocket fuel and diesel fuel. I'm like straight up from the country. I know the difference between the two. If I'm going to go light a bonfire, I'm not going to do it with rocket fuel, jet engine fuel. The reason why is because it burns really hot or really fast or really, 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 really quickly. And you're going to scorch your eyebrows straight off you, like when you light that match. Jet fuel, rocket fuel burns high octane or really hot, but it doesn't last long. Okay. Diesel fuel is a long, slow burning fire, right? Guilt works a lot like that jet fuel. It burns really fast. It works really quickly. Often, being a parent, you could probably guilt your athlete and your son and daughter into doing maybe 1, 2 things for you. But by the time you get to the 4th or 5th thing, they kind of get the game. And they're kind of like, no, what's in it for me? And as the athletes are growing up, they'll push back a little bit more naturally on that one. We want to encourage athletes to go deeper. You know, if they're at a level of guilt, why they compete and why they play tennis, we want to encourage them to go deeper. Again, purpose of this is understand why they do what they do. Okay. Number 3, long term. Why is your athlete playing sport? Well, it could be because long term, maybe they're a freshman in high school. 3 years from now, 4 years from now, I'm going to be going off to college. I want to earn an opportunity to go to play college. Okay. Well, what if college isn't in the cards? What if going pro is in the cards? Okay. What if getting to that next level of UTR or USDA level is in, their purview and what they want to do? Hey, I have to work really hard for this season because of the long term, a season from now, a year from now, I'm going to get to where I want to go. Okay. So we're getting closer to intrinsic, but the 3rd level DC and Ryan really identified was we do things oftentimes because there's a long-term incentive, there's a long-term reward at the end of the tunnel. I went to school, college, undergrad, grad without a break for about 7.5 years. And the counseling program I had took about 2.5 years, 3 years, very long program. Why did I complete that? A lot of it had to do with number 5, love, but then also number 3 played a really big part for me. I continued with the path. Year 5, I'm kind of burned out, not going to lie. But I continued with the path because I could see the end of the road. That long-term incentive, that long-term reward was right around the corner. I could see it, I could taste it. Athletes oftentimes will base goals or base their levels of motivation and working towards them around long-term incentives, long-term rewards. Why do companies, this is fun, why do companies often, especially your bigger companies, why do they offer long-term incentives? They want to keep you, right? They want to keep good talent, but they also want to motivate, and they want to put that carrot on the stick right out in front of you. Kind of funny, I'm talking about this. My wife started her new, not new anymore, her job about 3 years ago. And her long-term incentive upon hiring is just coming to where she can exercise those stock options. Well, guess what the company just rewarded her with a month ago? They know that reward date's coming up. So what do? They cast another carrot. Why do they do that? Again, long-term reward, long-term incentive. And there's some organizational psychologist out there in her company that probably knows this and says, hey, we want to incentivize, right? So powerful level of motivation? Yeah, to a degree. Long term? Yeah, that holds a lot more stock and a lot more weight than the first 2. Number 4, we call this one the just do it. All right, I love the Nike slogan, just do it. Per this one is because think of a person that they go to the gym, they go to exercise, and they don't know why they do it. They say, well, it's just me. It's part of a habit. It's part of a routine. I don't know. Trevor, why do you like coffee? It's 7 p.m. I should not be drinking coffee, but why do I like coffee? I don't know. I just do it. Why? It doesn't even taste great. I just do it. It's more of a habitual thing oftentimes. And people are motivated to do what they do oftentimes out of habit, out of routine, out of consistency. Powerful level of motivation, but it lacks something. It lacks direction. Okay. 5th one. Why do people do what they do? Often the 5th level of motivation DC and Ryan identified is love. Why do we do what we do? Because I love what I do. I enjoy it. It gives some level of intrinsic value and purpose and fulfillment and excitement. Oftentimes, when I'm talking and interviewing, especially when we do one-on-one coaching, I'll ask the tough questions. Hey, why do you do what you do? And what made you start playing tennis? The number one bona fide answer across the spectrum is athletes will play that sport and go deeper and continue to go deeper when they have a genuine love for the game. Why? I love being on the court. It's fun. It's exciting. I hit the ball. I run after the ball. Oh, that's awesome. We're talking like young athletes, right? That's what gets people started. And then all of a sudden, the incentives start creeping in. And then all of a sudden, it becomes about trophies. It becomes about UTR. It becomes about ranking. It becomes about getting recruited. It becomes about, you name it, right? Not bad. It just is what it is. So we have 5 different levels of motivation. Here's the activity. On a piece of paper, this is what I want you to do with your son and daughter, is I want you to have them make 2 lists. One titled, love to do, and the other, have to do. And then on each one that's listed, help your athlete and just verbal process, talk this out with them, and ask them to discover the why behind each one of those activities. The have-tos, by the way, some have-tos are very necessary. Hey, you have to go to school. Yeah, I know. What? Well, let's give some perspective. And can we help them shift that motivation? If it's just an X equals Y relationship, can we help them shift it 2 levels down? Can we help them shift it by shifting their perspective and challenging or encouraging them? Here's one challenge and one encouragement. When you run into some resistance, because I'll hear this sometimes from parents, they'll say, Trev, that's great advice, but like, listen, my athlete, my son, daughter, they're really sharp. They got an answer for everything. I'm like, yeah. Okay, so here's my suggestion. When you run into an athlete that is very intelligent and they want to ask questions and they're curious and they push back and they give you some resistance, my challenge is this. When you're trying to help them shift their motivation levels, tell them a story, a personal story for you. Connect it to them in a way that you're not preaching to them anymore or telling them about it. You're saying, I remember this one time when I was 14 years old and, your mom or your grandma and my mom made me do this or did that. And at the time I resented it, didn't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. Tell a story that connects to their youth and also help them understand, hey, I was like you at one point. When you can do that, you're connecting with, you're building a bridge to the soul is what you're doing. You're connecting with them at their level. So one of my challenges in I guess coaching advices on that is, can you tell a story, make it relatable, and help shift that perspective? Trust me, everything that we do doesn't have to be a level 5. It doesn't. But when you're chasing things that is difficult, such as sport, we need to really get real on helping athletes understand, listen, you're going to have days that are tough. We're going to talk about that in a second. You're going to have days that are tough. You're going to have days that are really challenging. But we got to understand and got to get real with, why do we do what we do? Let me pause right there real quick. I guess I'm a little bit long in my time so far, but give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, feedback. Does this make sense so far? Is this helpful for anybody? We got one thumb up. Yeah. Thanks, Jennifer. I see you. Cool. All right. Somebody in the chat. It's good. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I need the motivation, guys. Come on. All right. So I'll keep going here. Bouncing back. So agenda point number 2 was about bouncing back through adversities. Again, can we as parents help set the environment? So how do we define these 2? Okay. It's a little bit controversial. I'm going to wade into some, tough waters for a bit. How do we define failure versus failing? Athletes oftentimes will look at an event, and I hope this isn't your son or daughter. If it is, no problem. Help redefine it. Help set the perspective. There's a big difference in our world, being sports psychs and working with athletes, there's a big difference between failing and failure. Failure is a permanent base definition. I am a failure. And the only way to truly be a failure is to flat give up or quit. Like that's the way we define it. Okay. George and myself and our team, Hearts and Minds, that's the way we define it. Failure is a permanent base definition. Failing is an event that's going to happen. And I think it's really critical and important that we don't back away from that as parents and coaches. We let our athletes know, hey, some days you're going to have moments where you fail an event, right? But guess what? You're going to have other moments and other days and other opportunities where, guess what? You're going to crush it and you're going to have great success. And you got to understand, this sport that you're competing is filled with lots of little moments of failing. Okay, you may have heard this term and the phrase before is, okay, well, Trev, that's fine, but if we're going to fail, which way does it move us? Our coaching advice and encouragement is help your athletes to understand, hey, when you fail, still take a step forward. Fail moving forward. What does that mean? Here's the things to listen for. Okay. This is a chart, and I can follow up and send you guys this chart via PDF too. Here's a few things I want you to listen for. Okay. Listen to your athlete if they catastrophize. Listen if they disqualify their positive moments. Listen for if they minimize their success. All right, I'm just picking a few. Listen if they label themselves and call themselves stupid or dumb or I'm terrible, I'm never going to get this, I'm never. Listen for some of these things, because when you can catch it in the moment, you can coach it in the moment. That's catchy. That George, remind me that one. That was I should tweet that later. That's a good one. If you can, seriously, that's a good one. If you can catch it in the moment, you can typically coach it in the moment. What I use this chart for oftentimes, especially with parents, is I'll have them print that off and we'll put it in a good visual spot. If an athlete is typically critical of themselves, and I want them to understand, hey, what do you go to? What's your habits? What do you go to when things are tough? I want you to pump the brakes, hit the pause button when you catastrophize now. I need you to shift your perspective and understand, hey, that was a tough game out there. Yeah, they did hook you pretty bad. They cheated you pretty good. Everybody saw it. But what can you do about it? So instead of catastrophizing and saying, I lost the entire match because of it, even though we totally neglect like the 8 double faults that we've had, in the match leading up to that point. So if you can catch these moments in the moment, you can often help coach it in the moment. And it doesn't take much other than if you can see this chart, you raise your awareness to some of the most common things that we see as professionals that we help athletes and parents and coaches and programs with. So here's an activity to do. All right, so it's all about perspective. Remember, we're after the whole point tonight is about setting the environment at home, setting the environment with your son and daughter. Okay, so here's the activity. All right, perspective. So this is called the Well Better Learn, WBL chart. Okay, what I would tell you to do, here's the activity. You get a piece of paper and you write well, better, learned. And you ask 3 really critical questions. What did I do well? Next column over. What could I do better? Next column over. What did I learn? And then what we do with that is ask your athlete to list a minimum of 2 things for each of these categories or each of these labels. What did I do well? What could I have done better? What did I learn? And what you'll find, go back this real quick. What you'll find is a lot of their answers are going to help themselves, coach themselves to thinking different and shifting their perspective. What did I do well? What did I do better? What did I learn? 3 critical reflection points. I picked this up years ago, 2011 at IMG down in Florida when I used to work there. I will teach Well Better Learn for the next decade, like maybe beyond that. And I'll ask athletes at times in the beginning, I'll ask them, hey, well, better learned. And I explain the activity. And I'll ask them, I say, hey, which one of these three is negative? And they'll kind of scratch their heads and be like, well, I guess better is. I'm like, well, is it? No, not really. I said, well, yeah, you're right. It's a trick question. There's not a single one of these is negative. And what we're doing is we're engaging the optimistic side of the brain, and we're engaging their critical thinking to kick in. And we're encouraging them to look at the struggle, look at the challenge, no matter how bad it was, no matter how amazing it was, by the way. You do this after a win too, you can. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to engage them to help reframe that perspective and help encourage them to think positive, optimistic, encouraging it, thinking to do better, and thinking growth. You may have heard the term, the phrase growth mindset. Stanford research professor, she made this popular years ago, and it's still very popular. What we're doing with Well Better Learn, this is growth mindset. You're encouraging your son and daughter, your athlete, to think from the lens of improvement and hope, really. Well Better Learn, one of my favorite activities to do post-reflection. And by the way, if you have a son or daughter that really struggles, let's say, for example, struggles with one of these things on this list, here's my challenge to you as a mom and dad. Tell them that you heard it from us, so that way it has reinforcement. Woo, push. Feel free to reach out to us. You all have my phone number, by the way. That is my personal number. So feel free to text me, and I'll give you guys a selfie video if you want, and be like, hey, Lucy, let's do this. I'm sorry, I'm picking on Lucy because Jennifer, you mentioned Lucy. So if your son or daughter struggles with one of these areas or two of these areas, make this a habit after you finish practice on a consistent basis. And just sit back and think, for example, if your athlete is consistently day in, day out, frustrated or struggling with like perspective, this is a really powerful activity to help them bounce back, because again, it engages a whole different region of the brain. All right, last but not least, I'm doing okay on time. Yes. All right. Last but not least, I got bogged down with the motivation. I love motivation. Teaching our athletes to aim high comes down to a few principles. Again, set the environment. Do we expect them to succeed? I'm sure everybody on this call does, but I'm going to put this out there. Have you ever said to your athlete, I love asking this to parent groups, especially when I get about 100 parents in the room, because I know statistically there's at least 20 of them in the room that will do this, and oftentimes they out themselves. So when you have a big group, it's kind of fun to do. Small group, everybody's, on Zoom, it's different. But I asked the question, have you ever said to your athlete, all right, hey, go give your best effort, go try hard, and your body language just pretty much calls you a fraud? Like, yeah, you're gonna get smoked today. Yeah, you don't have a chance. Yeah, your attitude's in the tank. Parents sometimes will say the right message, but their body language doesn't believe it. Can we set the environment where we are communicating, not just with our words, but also with our body language and our attitude and our actions as a parent? Can we be a source of encouragement in an environment where we're encouraging them to aim high and to challenge their own beliefs? Hey, when you're about to go out and compete today, I know it's going to be tough. I know you have a tough match. I believe in you. Just know, if you look over and you see me, I'm just going to smile at you, because I want you to know I believe in you. Little messages like that go a long way to help aid in the environment that we're after, to be able to create an athlete that's a tough competitor, one that's willing to face adversity, one that's willing to fail miserably, and still know that, hey, mom and dad's got my back. They love me. I'm proud of them, or they're proud of me. Can we set the environment? Number 2, let it happen versus make it happen. All right, super controversial. Might have to edit this one out, George. So letting it happen versus making it happen. Let me explain this. there is different times in sport where the moment is the moment. You've prepared. You've athletically done everything that you can to prepare for the moment. My sport was college baseball. Let me go back to a high school example when I was playing high school baseball, and I'll put it in tennis terms. I'm pitching one of the best games of my life in high school, and the ball was loose in my hands. My arm was loose. My movement, my mechanics, my motion, everything was clicking. Everything was there. And what was amazing is the more loose I got, the better I had with movement on my fastball, the better my cutter moved, the better that my I called it the sinker, the better my sinker cut. And in high school baseball, you play 7 innings. I struck out 20 out of 21 batters that game. I was a very, very good baseball pitcher in high school. And I struck out 20 out of 21 guys. And it was amazing. About the third or fourth inning, I just remember going out to the mountain, reminding myself of just saying, man, I feel good. God, nobody can touch me. Like, I got this. I actually told myself, I remember this, I am thunder and I am lightning. I am smooth and I am fast. I am explosive. I am loose. And I remember saying that these, like, you can say mantras. There's really affirmations and belief statements, but what was amazing is I was letting the moment happen. Why? I had prepared for these moments. I'd prepared mentally, emotionally, physically to throw and to execute and to compete hard. Now let me tell you about another time. I go out on the mound, probably about 2 weeks later. I want to replicate what just happened. Second inning, their power hitter, number 4 hitter, number 5 hitter, number 6 hitter go home run, home run, home run. Kid you not, three bombs in a row right off me. And after the first home run, here's what happened. I gripped that ball tight, really tight. And I got tense and I got really frustrated. And I said, okay, the next guy is mine. 2-seam fastball inside, boom. I swear I still have whiplash from it. It went so far over my head, it hurt. The next guy come out, I got even more tense, got even more frustrated, got even more. And what happened was I'm trying to make the moment happen. I'm trying to exert my physicality to create and make that moment happen to the point where I dominate. Well, guess what? Making it happen led to anxiety, stress, chaos, and frustration, and actually got me further away from success. Letting it happen is trusting my preparation, trusting my abilities, knowing that I got this. Now go do your job. Making it happen comes down to and crazy amounts of effort and stress, and I just gotta keep going. There's a big difference between the two. Being able to teach our athletes the difference between the two goes a long way to be able to help them achieve what they want to do. Okay. So how do we do that? Well, a lot of it goes into the next point. A lot of us, we try to force our success. We try to force it because we're trying to be so overt and so intentional. And I gotta swing harder, or I gotta move my feet better, or what happens is when we are trying hard, it produces a lot of damaging tension. Versus, I know I've prepared. I see Coach Henry on the call. I'm going to use him. I know I've prepared for this moment. I'm going to take a deep breath. Next ball, I'm going to get to it, and I'm going to trust my instincts. I'm going to trust my shot. I'm going to place the ball where I need to place it, and I'm going to swing. That's letting it happen. One is, and I don't have it in the notes here, but you can write this down. What we're really talking about is trying hard versus playing hard. And if you think about this and you look at this really close, your athlete will likely have played their best tennis when they are playing hard, and they'll play the most tight that they've ever played in their life when they're trying hard. We want to get away from trying hard. We want to chase competing and playing hard. And again, I've got a really great handout Yeah, I created a handout with like 15 different examples of playing hard versus trying hard years ago when I was at the Olympic facility in Ohio. Really great handout. If anybody wants that, feel free to email me or text me. I'll send that over to you. Next point, goals drive everything. We have to be very intentional of, okay, what is our goal for this tournament? What's your goal? Hopefully a coach has, poured into them and encouraged them of helping them with those goals. Here's the one thing I want you to write down as mom, dad, make sure that your athlete is intentionally writing goals down. Write them down. It's not enough to just say them. Because here's the thing, when you fail or succeed at the goal, I want that athlete to have the mental, the emotional, and the physical connection of like, yeah, I set that goal and I saw it happen. Check mark. Yes, I did that. Yes. I want that satisfaction, that feeling. And here's the other side. When they fail a goal, no problem. I want them to also look down, recognize it, and then shift that perspective and understand, hey, that was a great goal. I came up short. No big deal. What do we do if we miss a goal? We set a new goal. That's it. Goals drive everything. And most of this boils down to control. It boils down to control. What is truly in our control? It's funny. Not funny, not so funny. I'm wearing the shirt. George, I didn't even plan that. That's cool. So the shirt is attitude, concentration, effort. Spells a really cool acronym called ACE. I wrote my first book on it in 2019. The 3 things an athlete or a human being for that matter can control 100% of the time: your attitude, your concentration, your effort. Most of what we're talking about boils down to control. Back to my example in high school, when I'm letting that moment happen, I'm playing hard, my attitude is locked in. My attention is pitch to pitch. My effort is flawless and simple and delivered. It was smooth. And when you challenge athletes when they come off court and they play amazing, they're in the zone, and you ask them around those 3 kind of areas, you ask them like, hey, what was your attitude like? It's often very simple and very strong. Where are you focused on? I was literally just focused on hitting the ball. It looked like a pumpkin. It's so big. Okay, well, how's your effort? Oh, easy, smooth. How's your footwork? Clean, quick. See, when we play at our absolute best, we're doing those 3 things amazing. When we're fighting tension, stress, anxiety, a little bit of fear, I'm trying to do those things hard versus just relax, let the moment happen, and compete hard. So here's the activity. I promised some activities, some very simple, practical things. Here's the activity. Have your athlete make a 2-tiered column list of the things that they should let happen versus the things they need to make happen. The need to make happen is, okay, what do you need to do on court? And then what are the things that we aren't going to force? I think that might be a good way to look at it. What are the things that you're currently or perhaps forcing versus the things that you aren't? Make that 2-tier column list. And again, talk this out with them. I'll stop my screen share. That was the last slide. It really comes down to, a lot comes down to perspective. And again, I mentioned environment. Can we be intentional and help set that environment? And not only set it, but can we help foster it? It's one thing to set it. It's another thing to, pursue it and to encourage it and to work towards maintaining it. So that being said, let me go ahead and pause the recording.